A customer drove in from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Las Vegas, that's 700 miles, give or take, just to have his 2011 Accord V6 serviced. He didn't ask for an estimate over the phone.
He already knew it was going to be over $2,000. He approved it before we even pulled the car into the bay. That tells you something. That tells you this is a guy who's been burned before by a shop that cut corners. A shop that replaced the timing belt but skipped the water pump. A shop that said the valves were fine without actually pulling the intake off to check them. He didn't drive 700 miles to save monies. He drove 700 miles to have it done right the first time.
Welcome back to Honda Decoded. I'm Mike, 25 years working on Honda and Acura vehicles. Today I'm going to break down exactly what goes into a major service on the J35 V6. The 3.5-liter engine Honda put in the Accord from 2003 through 2012. I'm going to tell you what's involved, what it actually costs, why the quote you got sounds high but probably isn't, and how to know if the shop you're talking to actually knows what they're doing. If you own an Accord V6 with more than 80,000 miles on it, stay with me. This one matters.
The timing belt, and why the water pump is non-negotiable.
Let's start with what brought this customer in.
The 2011 Accord V6 J35 Z2 engine runs a timing belt, not a chain, a belt. And that belt has a service interval of 105,000 miles or 7 years, whichever comes first. That's straight out of Honda's maintenance schedule. Some people hear timing belt and think it's the same as any other belt under the hood.
It is not.
If a serpentine belt breaks, your car stops running. Inconvenient. If a timing belt breaks on the J35 while the engine is running, the pistons and valves collide inside the engine. That collision destroys the cylinder head. Sometimes it cracks the block.
You go from a $2,000 service to a $4,000 or $5,000 engine repair, and that's assuming you can even source a good used engine.
I've seen people limp a car into our shop with a broken timing belt thinking it was a simple fix.
It never is. Here's the part that trips people up. On the J35,
the water pump is mounted behind the timing belt and is driven by it. You physically cannot access the water pump without removing the timing belt first.
So when a shop quotes you a timing belt replacement and says they'll do the water pump separately later, they either don't know what they're doing or they're planning to charge you double labor.
The right answer is you do both at the same time, always. Parts for a timing belt kit, belt, water pump, tensioner, idler pulleys, run $300 to $400 in quality aftermarket. OEM Honda parts push that to $500 or more. Then you're looking at 4 to 6 hours of labor. That's where the $1,200 to $1,500 quote comes from. It's not padding, it's the actual job.
If your Accord V6 has more than 80,000 miles and you don't know when the timing belt was last done,
subscribe to Honda Decoded. I cover exactly this kind of thing so you know what questions to ask before something expensive happens.
The valve adjustment, what nobody tells you about the labor.
Honda does not use hydraulic valve lifters on most of their engines. Not on the 4 cylinders, not on the J35 V6, not even on their newer engines. I just had a 2020 CR-V in the shop, fully up to date, modern vehicle. And it had valve adjustment specifications in the service manual, just like engines from 15 years ago.
Honda has made a deliberate engineering choice to use mechanical valve clearance adjustment,
and I actually respect it.
Mechanical clearances are more precise, more durable, and more consistent across a wide temperature range.
But it does mean there's a service interval involved. The problem is what you have to go through to get to the valves on the J35. The intake plenum, the upper intake manifold, sits directly over both valve covers. You cannot remove a valve cover until you remove the intake. That means disconnecting vacuum lines, throttle body connections, fuel connections, and unbolting the plenum from the lower intake. Then you can get to the valve cover bolts. Then you pull the covers, replace the gaskets, and use feeler gauges to check every single valve, intake and exhaust, on both banks. That's a total of 24 valves on this engine. I've had customers come in and say they just want the valves checked, not adjusted. and I have to explain to them that we charge the same whether we're checking or adjusting, because the labor to get in there is identical either way. We have to pull the intake, pull the covers, go through every valve with a feeler gauge. If they're in spec, great. The gaskets go in the trash anyway because you never reinstall old valve cover gaskets, and we put new ones on. If they need adjustment, we set them. Same $400 to $500 of labor either way, plus gaskets and plenum gaskets. This customer's valves were slightly wider than spec, about 1/1000th of an inch out, so we adjusted them. Fast, not a major problem, but left long enough. Valve clearance that's too large causes ticking, accelerated wear on the cam lobes, and eventually misfires. Thursday. The valve adjustment is one of the most misunderstood services on a Honda V6. If that surprised you, subscribe. There's a lot more on this channel about services dealers skip and what they cost you when they're ignored too long. To the CV shaft vibration. How to diagnose it before you spend money. This customer had a vibration in the steering wheel, a shake that showed up at highway speed and went away the moment he pressed the accelerator. The instant he lifted off the gas, it came back. He'd already put on a new set of wheels thinking that was the problem. It wasn't. The wheels were fine. What he had was worn inboard CV joint plunge joints on both front axle shafts.
On a front-wheel drive vehicle like the Accord, the CV shafts connect the transmission to the wheels.
The inboard joint is designed to slide in and out slightly as the suspension moves. That's the plunge in the name. Caution. When that joint wears, there's a small amount of play, maybe a 1/16th of an inch.
When the car is coasting with no load on the driveline, that play allows the shaft to move slightly out of alignment and vibrate.
The moment you press the gas and put tension on the joint, it locks up and the vibration disappears. Then you lift off. Tension releases, and it comes back. That's the pattern. If someone tells you that a vibration that disappears under acceleration might be a wheel issue, they're not wrong to check. But if new wheels don't fix it, move directly to the CV shafts before spending anything else. On the 2011 Accord V6, OEM replacement CV shafts run $120 to $150 each through Honda. Quality aftermarket, Dorman, GSP, comes in around $60 to $90 per shaft. We put OEM back on this car because the customer asked for it. Labor to replace both shafts is about 1 to 2 hours on this platform, since the transmission and subframe give you decent access. The key is doing both sides at the same time. If one inboard joint is worn, the other is usually right behind it. VV shaft vibration gets misdiagnosed as wheel balance bent rims or even suspension problems. If you're chasing a vibration on your Accord, subscribe. I break down exactly how to trace these issues before you spend money replacing the wrong thing.
Transmission fluid and the DW1 switch. Don't get this wrong.
2011 Accord V6 pairs that J35 engine with a 5-speed automatic transmission. Honda's fluid spec for that transmission is DW1, not ATF-Z1, that's the older spec Honda used before 2010. Not a generic Dexron. DW1. A shop or a quick lube place puts anything other than DW1 in a Honda automatic from this era, you will eventually have shifting problems. Shudder on light throttle. Hesitation between second and third. Friction modifier package in DW1 is specific to Honda's transmission clutch pack material, and the wrong fluid changes how those clutches engage. I've had people come in with shifting complaints on perfectly serviceable transmissions. We drain the fluid. Look at what comes out. Sometimes it's a generic ATF that's turned dark and smells burnt. But we do 2 or 3 drain and fill cycles with DW1, and sometimes the transmission smooths out completely. Not always. If the clutch packs are already worn, the fluid isn't going to fix that. Testing.
But I've seen it work enough times that I always start there before I open a transmission. Transmission fluid on the Accord is not listed as a maintenance item on Honda's standard maintenance binder.
Honda
officially considers it lifetime fluid.
I do not agree with that, and I tell every customer the same thing. Drain and fill the transmission fluid every 30,000 miles. It's cheap insurance. Fluid on this particular car had never been touched at 95,000 miles. It was dark but not burnt. We drained it, filled it with fresh DW1, and that transmission is going to last a lot longer because of it.
Reading the full picture, what a high-mileage V6 Accord actually tells you.
This car had 95,000 miles on it. No rust underneath. Original exhaust, brakes at 60 to 70% front and rear. Struts that aren't blown, a clean interior. The paint was solid. The only things wrong with it were maintenance items that were simply due.
Not neglect, not abuse, just the cumulative effect of 95,000 miles of driving in a desert climate. Best A.
Here's what I tell people when they ask whether a high-mileage Accord V6 is worth buying. The J35 engine is a strong, well-engineered unit. The timing belt is the one thing you absolutely cannot ignore, because when it goes, it takes the engine with it.
But if the belt has been serviced, the transmission fluid is clean, the valve clearances are in spec,
and the CV shafts are solid, this engine will go 200,000 miles without drama. I've seen them do it.
The ones that die early are the ones where someone skipped the timing belt because it seemed expensive,
or ran the wrong transmission fluid for 50,000 miles. One thing worth noting on the J35 V6, this is a SOHC, single overhead cam, engine with VTEC on the exhaust side. It is not the same architecture as the K24 four-cylinder or the earlier F22 engines. The J35 uses an aluminum block and aluminum cylinder head. It does not have iron cylinder liners in the traditional sense. Honda uses a process called plasma-transferred wire arc to coat the cylinder walls directly in the aluminum block. This is important for one reason. Our engine is sensitive to proper warm-up. Short trips in cold weather where the engine never fully reaches operating temperature will gradually wash the cylinder walls with fuel and degrade the coating faster than normal.
If you're putting short miles on a J35 in a cold climate, make sure you're getting the oil changed more frequently than the maintenance minder suggests. Honest disclosure.
Everything I've described in this script is based on real service work on the J35 engine family.
Specifically, the 2003 through 2012 Accord V6, along with other Honda and Acura vehicles that share this platform.
The cost figures I've quoted. Timing belt service at $1,200 to $1,500, valve adjustment at $400 to $500, CV shafts at $60 to $150 each are real-world shop numbers. They will vary based on your region, your shop's labor rate, and whether you're using OEM or quality aftermarket parts. I am not saying every 2011 Accord V6 will have these problems at this mileage. I'm saying these are the service items that matter on this engine, and this is what they cost when done correctly. Before buying any used Accord V6 with unknown service history, pay a shop to lift the car, inspect the timing belt, pull a transmission fluid sample, and check the valve clearances. That inspection costs you $100 to $200. It can save you thousands. This customer drove 700 miles because he'd learned his lessons somewhere else.
He knew what a properly serviced car feels like, and he knew what it costs to ignore it.
He left with a fresh timing belt, new water pump, adjusted valves, both CV shafts replaced, fresh DW1 in the transmission, and a power steering pump that isn't going to be leaking oil on his garage floor next month. The car has 95,000 miles on it. If he takes care of it the same way going forward, it will have 200,000. Drop your engine code and mileage in the comments. If you've got a J35 V6 Accord and you're wondering what you should be doing at your mileage, I'll tell you straight. No sales pitch, just the list. Keep the oil clean and the belt fresh. See you next time. Subscribe to Honda Decoded for straight talk on Honda and Acura service. No filler, no upsells, just what your car actually needs and what it's going to cost you.